Law of gender. Dear ascending family, with the shifts into the next harmonic universe, there are some changes happening in the light body, which are affecting Merkaba mechanics and how the gender fins of the light body operate. With these changes come new opportunities to uncover and heal any gender distortions we may be carrying. These changes also deepen our understanding of how gender principles are part of the natural laws and how unifying gender principles manifest as the diamond sun crystalla orb body. With the Palladorian activations, there are new mathematical proportions of the diamond sun 12-tree grid pattern being embodied, including the reclamation of Adamic lines. In contrast, there is an aggressive form of gender confusion being amplified, which is linked with a transhumanist agenda. We observe what is happening in the promotion of gender reassignment surgeries and discuss some of the impacts transgenderism may have on the soul and light body. All things exist within the gender principle of creation. Everything has its masculine and feminine principle, which produce metaphysical forces. These forces arrange within the spiritual blueprints that translate into the gender principle that manifests itself upon all dimensional planes. There is not one aspect of life, consciousness, and creation where the masculine and feminine principles remain non-existent or absent. It is an absolute truth that the law of gender is manifested within everything. It is impossible for creation to take place without this universal law in action at some level, even when the gender principles have been replicated, reversed, or manipulated through artificial technology. Whether organic or inorganic, the law of gender will always apply to what has been manifested. Gender principle is intrinsic to every form in existence, including the human body, which is designed in a gender principle biology. It is important to be aware that the law of gender is intentionally violated, damaged, and distorted by the negative alien agenda upon the earth, as they learned that through splitting the gender principle into grotesque mutations, it further served their enslavement agenda. Although the law of gender and the law of polarity are intimately intertwined, it is important to realize that either gender contains both polarities simultaneously, with the circuitry flowing in magnetic north to magnetic south, which moves in different or opposing directions in a male and female body. The male and female body on the physical plane mirror each other through vibrational correspondence that occurs during interaction between the positive and negative polarity that runs through what could be referred to as magnetic north to magnetic south pole positions. The main circuitry of the magnetic pole positions are held in the horizontal plane of the light body architecture, in the heart complex and sacral complex, which governs the consciousness energy movement throughout the light body via the meridians, axiotonal lines, dimensional spheres, and chakra centers. However, once we unify the horizontal and vertical planes of polarity within the gender principle of our light body, we develop the neutral point in all energy centers, merging gender principles. which manifests as the eternal life body, or diamond sun, crystalla, orb body. To begin to unify the masculine and feminine within, we must understand that whether a man or woman, we hold both gender principles, as well as positive and negative poles inside our body and consciousness. There is no way to change the law of gender inside a human body, although it can be distorted through misinterpretation and harmful behaviors, such as believing gender is to be equated with the common understanding of sexuality and sexual preferences. Every male has the components of female energy within his body and specific feminine principles in his light body, and every female has the components of male energy in her body with specific male principles in her light body. No matter how small the element in creation, from the microscopic levels of subatomic particles, moving up the scale all the way to planets, stars, and solar systems, everything is created from the law of gender. As we bring energetic synthesis between the gender principles, we also synthesize the forces of polarity present into neutral or 0 point. And this is the evolutionary journey of the ascension process that merges our physical self with our spiritual bodies and ultimately God's source. In order to achieve self-mastery in our life, it is necessary to understand the law of gender that exists within all things and seek the natural energetic balance that exists between these pairs of opposite. When we live in harmony with the law of gender, it catalyzes profound spiritual healing that neutralizes karmic burdens and miasmatic patterns, allowing us to be unified and live in increasing harmony with the forces in the external world. Esoterically, to truly comprehend the law of gender is to perceive it far beyond the physical classifications and biological limitations, to know that the highest nature of the gender principle is unity consciousness. Unity consciousness is intrinsically integrated with the cosmic sovereign law of God, or the law of one, and unity consciousness is the first practice of the law. This informs us that in order to be in harmony with the law of one and experience unity consciousness, we must seek to understand the principles of gender in our personal consciousness and intend to unify all of its aspects and the archetypal forces that operate in our gender-based identity. Healing separation in gender. In order to evolve and manifest our spiritual purpose, we must study the masculine and feminine principles that exist within our being, in order to heal their separation from each other, that reveals through the interrelationship we have with ourselves. Once we recognize that we are both inherently male and female, and that this fact is unchangeable, we can experience how our relationship to our inner male and female influences every external relationship that we experience in the world. Many times the answers we are seeking about resolving recurring patterns or conflicts that we have in our life and personal relationships go back to the causal seed of how we feel about our mother and father. The quality of our relationships, whether they are healthy and balanced or unhealthy and abusive, will always return to the links in the parent-child bond in this life and other lifetimes. This gender pattern will reflect outwardly to others how we unconsciously feel about ourselves until we become aware of the influence these archetypes have upon us, and we do the inner work to transcend and heal these painful patterns, taking care to build a strong inner core self. Always includes an emotional and spiritual exploration into the nature of gender separation, reviewing our beliefs that formed our conscious identity surrounding the masculine and feminine. If we give more value to one gender over the other, subconsciously or consciously, and this is reflected in how we treat others, we increase division, disharmony, and power conflicts in all of our outer manifestations. If we hold levels of contempt or think one gender is more important, smarter, or superior, we set up failure in our life and personal relationships by projecting this disdain upon the same gender principle that exists inside ourselves. Men that project harm or hatred towards women destroy their inner female. Women that project harm or hatred towards men destroy their inner male. As a result, both men and women descend into sexual misery programming as a result of inner gender separation. In this example, the very thing that each person needs to find wholeness, fulfillment, and completion within themselves is being destroyed by their own unconscious actions through the choices they make on the external to further separate gender. During the ascension process, we start returning to our memories in childhood to observe how that experience formed into our belief systems in adulthood, so that we can unravel our deeper feelings and perceptions surrounding the male and female archetypes within. Many times this means we will need to address places where we hold painful conflict or emotional trauma that has been recorded in the physical body. Once we are aware of the archetypal influences that surround our lifetime of experiences and beliefs that were gathered around the male-female, then we can begin to decode the painful gender patterns in our own behaviors that we had buried and begin to change them. We uncover these gender patterns and attitudes by paying attention to what shows up in our relationships with others, especially any destructive patterns that surface in emotionally intimate and sexual relationships. If we pay attention to what these gender patterns mean to us as value systems, and we choose to free ourselves of dogma and static roles by letting them go, we can experience profound spiritual healing. One important constant is to know that any relationship that comes together based upon deception is being played out by the false identity or mind-controlled gender roles will never be based in a healthy foundation that builds trust. Without unconditional love, honesty, full disclosure, and trust earned between the people involved in any kind of interpersonal relationship, that relationship is doomed to fail through the destructive patterns that started it. We can choose to develop deeply meaningful connections with others, or become an actor with a face on a stick for the people that only care about us when we show up in the archetype that makes them feel the most comfortable. In Western society, the false king of tyranny, or the emasculated male, matches the polarity with the dark mother princess code, or femme fatale. And as long as people play out these superficial victimizer archetypes with each other, never bothering to truly look within, the karmic situation that connects them is built on shifting sands with a house of cards. Gender does not have inherently fixed roles or sexual expectations. All of this can be decided upon as what is most healthy and balanced for supporting our inner male and female. This revolutionary action of becoming more consciously authentic can radically shift all outer relationships we have into much greater harmony by changing the relationship we have with the gender principle that exists inside us. When living in harmony with the law of gender, life becomes simpler, easier, and flows more harmoniously, allowing healthy and balanced relationships with each gender to further blossom and develop into deeply meaningful connections. Superficiality falls by the wayside when we decide to love ourselves unconditionally and give ourselves permission to live as authentically as possible, even when our choices are judged or criticized by others. Damaging the parent-child bond. However, there are destructive gender patterns that we have inherited in the third-dimensional world that were socially engineered by the controller system. Thus, we all have a responsibility to our body, mind, and spirit to commit to do the inner emotional work in order to move out of the confusion and return to clarity about gender. The mind control set up by the negative alien agenda is to damage the parent-child relationship in order to destroy the potential of the male-female sacred marriage later in adulthood, which has been described as the distortion of the false parent archetype in victim-victimizer programming. Thus, this is another key to comprehending the law of gender, knowing that we unlock unity consciousness within us as a result of healing our inner gender patterns that are connected to our mother and father. The false parent is the setup for interfering with the spiritual bond made between mother and child at birth, and then destroying the spiritual bond made between the father and child. This harmful pattern, many times, results in disconnecting the physical body from the soul connection and spiritual parents, the real mother and father principle we call God Source. This is the setup to deeply reject our inner spiritual parent and to set up abusive conditioning as acceptable behaviors in the mother-father archetypal patterns played out in society. Mother and father archetypes tend to unconsciously play out in the authoritative roles in our psyche, so the programming intends to equate government, religion, and military authority roles to usurp our bond to our parents. Honor the false parent by not questioning their authority credo applies to all controller pillars of society. The patriarchal domination setup in the negative alien death culture was intended to run subconscious and conscious mind programming, directing male and female self-hatred, along with broad cultural misogyny, which radically harms both men and women through the promotion of these spiritually abusive behaviors. This is a strategy to split gender by distorting and reversing the mother and father archetypes in our society. The false parent is what sets up the sexual misery program later in adulthood, attracting couples with the extreme opposing polarities of shared karmic burdens that continue to split the gender principle between them apart. If we do not know how to heal or unify our inner gender principle, the chasm of belief between the male and female roles in the outer world continues to widen, increasing the feelings of separation and other distortions. With a disconnected and unhappy ego, this also makes for unhappy marriages and promiscuous sex, when the personality believes the grass is always greener somewhere else, through the missing pieces of their own internal gender split. As we study our motivations, perceptions, and belief systems about the masculine and feminine, and all of the gender roles imposed upon us, we can choose to unite their qualities when noticing how their aspects are expressing themselves. As we intend to unify and harmonize our inner masculine and feminine, we synthesize the polarities of these forces back into neutral or unity. This process unleashes the highest spiritual potential of our Christic being, fulfilling our divine purpose of completion, which multiplies its sustainable source of eternal living light, within and without. Law of polarity, or pairs of opposite. The natural law of polarity, also referred to as the pairs of opposites, is intertwined with the law of gender, but is not to be confused as the same thing. Essentially, it means that things may appear as opposites are actually varying degrees of positive and negative poles, or one of the two sides of the same thing. There are two sides of polarity that exist within everything. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. And the opposites are identical in nature but exist in different degrees. When we can see both sides of these polarities operating in the world, we can elevate above the opposing energies and issues they may generate by observing them from the neutral state. We can transform our thoughts and transform the situation by simply raising our vibration from out of the polarized state, by holding neutral or compassionate witnessing. One will notice the same repeated polarity patterns appearing in some configuration that is in absolutely every energetic force or matter form, and that this pattern repeats itself through multiple dimensional layers. As an example, all dimensional layers in the harmonic universes have interconnected building blocks of matter and antimatter that are created from positive charge, negative charge, and neutral or 0-point energy potential. To create circuits of feedback loops for multiplying open source energy supply, or for directing the finite energy supply to something or somewhere, these charges must attract, link, and bond together. The positive or negative charge in the energies are inherent in the forces that are governed by the law of gender and the law of polarity. And this is the architecture which everything is created from in this universe. Through the law of polarity, there are many soul formation groups on evolution journeys that are primarily weighted in the negative or positive polarity, which can also describe the service to self and service to others orientation in a specific group consciousness. Let's look at how the law of polarity is working in the building blocks of matter. The main three layers of the building blocks of all matter in the universe include the electron, proton, and neutron as positive, negative, or neutral charged consciousness units. Math as the language of code for setting blueprints and architecture. Forces and energy, which include spectrums of color frequency, oscillation, and vibration. The atom is a basic unit of particle matter that consists of a dense central nucleus surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons. Here, the protons have a positive electric charge, the electrons have a negative electric charge, and the neutrons have no electric charge. An atom containing an equal number of protons and electrons is electrically neutral. Atoms are extremely small, and every solid, liquid, gas, and plasma is composed of neutral or ionized atoms, which describes the gain or loss of electrons that happens in an atom. So even in an atom, the law of polarity and the law of gender are at work. It is wise to consider that if our biology is made of atoms that obey the natural laws of gender, and we decide to ignore that truth, we will greatly increase the disconnection between our physical perception and higher spiritual consciousness. When we make choices that violate the laws of nature, we disconnect from our spirit, and thus we suffer. To better understand the model being used below to describe the positive and negative charge in the law of polarity, we consider both the particle and antiparticle building blocks of matter. Our primary focus is within the blueprint of the instruction set made in the electromagnetic field. Thus, our model will tend to use the antiparticle setting, which is the counterpart to particle mass. To better clarify, as a result, the information below will be opposite to the current mainstream scientific consensus for assigning positive or negative charge to electrons and protons in relationship to the atomic theory of matter. Particle matter building blocks are electron negative, proton positive, and neutron zero charge. Antiparticle matter building blocks, electron positive, proton negative, and neutron at zero charge. So taking in this information, every person, place, or thing will have an energetic polarity in particle matter and its double in antiparticle matter, and that combination is balanced or weighted in one form of energetic polarity or its opposite. Ultimately, our spiritual goal is to unify and link up the particle matter and antiparticle matter of our consciousness and body via the process of polarity integration. Polarity integration is identifying and locating that consciousness content we have, which may be unable to link and bond together, and then intending to unify them through the witness in the neutral point. This is also represented within our physical gender bodies, which express as a polarity in matter form, when incarnated in a male or female body. While our physical body may appear to exist in one polarity form in matter, our internal and external energies exist in both male and female principles simultaneously. As an example, on the vertical plane, bring to mind a physical human body from top to bottom. The male and female human body is divided into a right side male and a left side female by the central vertical channel. There are many natural characteristics of the male and female principle that we all share in the human species. Yet, we must identify that which is unnatural and alien to our male and female, and cast it out of our consciousness. The right side of our human body is the male gender pattern, which is the active force principle with internal circuitry that works as the electrical transmitter of positive charged electrons. The male spin in this configuration in the third-dimensional architecture tends to spiral current in a clockwise rotation. When moving to another location in the harmonic universe, the male spin may reverse its position to counterclockwise rotation. The left side of our human body is the female gender pattern, which is the passive force principle with the internal circuitry that works as the magnetic receiver of negative charged protons. The female spin in this configuration in the third dimensional architecture tends to spiral current in a counterclockwise rotation. When moving to another location in the harmonic universe, the female spin may reverse its position to a clockwise rotation. Therefore, in the antiparticle setting, considering that our male principal electrons are positively charged, which interact with the female principal proton, which are negatively charged, and that interaction will default its spin in the male clockwise motion. In considering the counterpart female also in the antiparticle setting, considering that our female principal protons are negatively charged, which interact with the male principal electrons, and that interaction will default its spin in the female counterclockwise motion. These two male and female principles in the energetic forces come together to create the ranges of electromagnetism and other forces that we experience on the planet. At a certain rotation of spin, as the male and female come into unification, the negative and positive cancel out and go into the neutral charge, which is the 0 point or open source energy supply. According to the Guardian system, to break free of the bi-wave structure which forces a closed-loop energetic supply and perpetuates reversal current and deadlight energy, we can alter the antiparticle blueprint layers with our higher consciousness to activate the electrically neutral state, which allows the neutral forces to emit feedback loops of natural living light. This principle applies to the structure of the soul anatomy in the human light body, as well as the planetary systems in the search for free and renewable energy. The same energy potential is related to the concept of free energy systems that are open-sourced and self-sustaining. However, this has been hidden from humanity to prevent access to it. When we understand how access to self-sustaining source light as open-source energy is available to us all, this is essentially activating the higher spiritual knowledge to obey the law of polarity. Once the masses can understand this law and the reasons the controllers have chosen to violate the laws of nature, to amplify the gender splitting and reversals in the forces of polarity, we can finally evolve to a future that opens access to free, open source energy for all inhabitants. In order to be energetically balanced, harmonized, and peaceful with ourselves, we must acknowledge the inner and outer polarity. By acknowledging the value and necessity of how the law of polarity and the law of gender rules our life, we can truly know thyself. State of Merkaba fields. More Earth inhabitants are entering the state of Merkaba building as a result of the ascension cycle and the shift to the next harmonic universe that activates the fourth DNA layer frequencies. This means that the planetary body and the physical body is transmuting into less dense states of light by shifting the angle on which the particles have been rotating. Merkaba fields are pairs of electromagnetic fields based on the law of gender, which are male electrical spirals and female magnetic spirals that are counter-rotating to each other and fully interwoven together. The counter-rotating spirals of the Merkaba fields act as the natural energy circulation system between the particle and antiparticle layers that exist within all of the timeline, the parallel universes, in the entire time matrix, all the way to the Godhead. Merkaba fields are actually consciousness-traveling vehicles through which frequencies of electromagnetic current, such as Kundalini life force waves, circulate all of the energies and thus move in and out of dimensionalized manifestation. Every single person has a Merkaba field, running male and female energies that is connected into their biology, which is critical for the expansion of consciousness and for circulating life force in the bodies so that they are energetically balanced and healthy. Through the merge of the male and female principles during spiritual ascension and the result of progressive activation of the Merkaba vehicle, the biology has the ability to enter the state of building the counter-rotating spirals of the Merkaba field. Building the Merkaba vehicle allows for time travel or to skip forward into higher dimensions. And the first stages of experience for most ascending people will happen during dreamscapes in sleep state. The ability to enter the state of Merkaba is dependent on the relative balance between the male and female principle the person has achieved in their consciousness, informing us that the Merkaba field and ascension travel vehicle is also fully governed by the law of gender. The diamond sun body has 12-strand DNA, which allows for multiple dimensional Merkaba fields to activate in the biology, which changes the birth transduction record to be able to replenish the energy supply for the body. This means that as the Merkaba spirals activate, the timeline of the birth record in the current identity actually shifts into a future timeline. The timeline in which an ascending consciousness identity was born in the third dimensional timelines is actually shifting to another location. The diamond sun body has 4 large counter-rotating spiral Merkaba fields that connect into the biology that together form into a perfect elliptical sphere of light, which rearranges the core manifestation body into an eternal light grid. Kristalla Merkaba fields. The base 12 universal androgynous Merkaba fields of Christ Sophia are called Kristalla, and they make up the instruction set for all Merkaba fields within all the timelines and densities throughout the universes. The 12th-dimensional Merkaba field spiral is the Kristalla male principle that is generated on the outer fields by the internal Kristalla female principle spiral that is generated from the aquamarine Holy Mother arc principle in the 13th gateway. The 13th gateway is the aqua portal which opens the neutron window that leads into the 7 higher heavens through Andromeda. The Kristalla Merkaba fields have a gender fin alignment that instructs the direction of the starting position for the rotational spin of the top and bottom Merkaba spirals for the male and female that build the ascension vehicle. The 12-dimensional avatar Christos intelligence sets the gender fin orientation of the Kristalla Merkaba spiral and determines the alignment for the gender polarity spirals in every dimension. Think of the gender fin as the bottom and top tetrahedron that make up the 6-pointed Merkaba star. There is a male principal gender fin and female principal gender fin that regulates the starting spin points of our Merkaba spirals, and then starts to merge and unify them into sacred union or Hieros Gamos. When we communicate with our avatar Christos Sophia intelligence and build our 12th dimensional shield, Eventually, we rebuild the mini Merkaba spirals, which start to align how our male and female internal energies will start to spin to help unify and build our Merkaba vehicle. By uniting our inner male and female, undergoing the process of sacred marriage or herogamic union, and obeying the law of gender, the natural process of communication links with Christ consciousness begin to build the Merkaba fields. The gender fin is the point where the vertical energy currents of the Merkaba spiral conduct into a node within the light body shield that distributes the frequency current throughout the horizontal clock shield. Again, bring to mind the gender fin as the bottom and top tetrahedron that make up the six-pointed Merkaba star. To visualize the female spin point and the male spin point starting positions in the Kristalla Merkaba spiral, first think of the two triangles merged together. The triangle pointing down is the female. The triangle pointing up is the male principle. Now bring to mind the face of a clock with only the time on the clock in the position of 6 and 12. For the starting point of the spin for the female Merkaba spiral, place the bottom triangle point aligned with the clock face at the 6 o'clock position. This starting position is the negative polarity magnetic female principle spin, which is considered the female gender fin front 6 bottom orientation. For the starting point of the spin for the male Merkaba spiral, place the top triangle point aligned with the clock face at the 12 o'clock position. This starting position is the positive polarity electrical male principle spin, which is considered the male gender fin rear 12 top orientation. For most Earth humans, the female principle-based magnetic charge would spin in counterclockwise position, and the male principle-based electrical charge would spin in clockwise position. However, as we move into the next harmonic during the ascension cycle, this may flip into the reverse starting spin. As we are shifting on the Earth, and there are many possible configurations that may occur within the polarity and spin orientation of the male and female Merkaba spirals, it is suggested to communicate directly with your avatar Christ Sophia intelligence, to orientate to the highest expression of clockwise and counterclockwise spin that is possible now. The point of this information is to know the reality of the male and female Merkaba spirals that make up the universal androgynous Merkaba fields of Christ Sophia, and to better comprehend the law of gender and the law of polarity that is inherent in our spiritual biology and governing our highest consciousness. Obeying the natural laws through the science of right living, discerning the difference between negative ego distortions and its perception of negative and positive polarities is what gives us the clarity to align with our personal Christ. Diamond Sun Palladorian Activation. In the process of shifting into the next harmonic universe, many in the Christic family have been enduring an embodiment phase. For the new mathematical proportions of the Diamond Sun 12-tree grid pattern for the fifth dimensional octave. Additionally, many reclamation of identities and body parts from the parallels have been taking place, such as the return of the Adamic lines back to the rightful owner to support their current phase of embodiment. In this small group, all particle chakras have been dissolved. Many people on the earth still have lower chakras, and so they will still need the support based upon the transmutation of these lower density nets and energies as they shift. The lower subconscious fragments are problematic in generating chaotic static net fields with the artificial intelligence transmission. And this has amplified symptoms of the shadow and pain body in the masses that have not cleared out these trauma aspects. In this activation for higher embodiment, the resonant points for the main energy centers in the physical body have shifted higher, slightly changing their position and adding more light body architecture to the skull, head, and crown. The changes to the skull and crown have resulted in cranial and sinus pressure, aches and pains in the entire bone matrix, with particular emphasis on the skull, foramen magnum, and sphenoid bone. The bone marrow relays intelligent information to the bloodstream and throughout the central nervous system to the brain, and thus the entire bone matrix has been potentially overactive with several sequential light body transmissions. The third dimensional layers of the first dimensional and second dimensional frequency wave spectrums, their reversal nets and energy centers, such as the 2D, 4D split shadow body, are completely dissolved and membranes gone, leaving a solar sacrum and higher position for the steel point and conscious identity above the navel. With the diamond sun body activation for the eternal light body in the fifth dimension, all separated electromagnetic fields in the light body release their polarization membranes and electromagnetic barriers, merging the male-female counter-rotation spirals into a large orb of light surrounding the body. There are three main orb bodies nested within each other that are built on a trinity of triangles that align in the central vertical channel as the new position for the third sphere, sixth sphere, ninth sphere, and then the personal Christ at the 12th sphere. These main energy spheres are located on the central column and are merged into a tri-wave neutral charge, or non-polarized energy centers. Each of the 3, 6, 9, 12 positions connect to a trinity in one built for the conscious identity, soul triad, oversoul triad, and the personal Christ, respectively. The bass tones and the overtones that make up the left-hand female side and right-hand male side of the eternal tree of life also exist, but the main areas of the eternal light orb body are primarily directed in the male-female merge that occurs in the central vertical channel. It appears that the personal Christ may choose to run many different rainbow ray assortments through the main vertical channel into the orb body, but the current observation has been connected to transmission sourcing from the Aqualasha diamond heart rays from Andromeda. Also, the light body is no longer connected to the earth core in the same way and hovers upon the base shield built underneath the feet. The base shield connects into the feedback loop of the 360 degrees of the 0-point field or Godhead that runs from within the internal diamond pillar. This current runs from the top of the crown to under the feet, returning back to the 0-point feedback loop made through the 12th sphere personal Christ consciousness. The 12-12 electrical Christ pattern runs the 0-point into a feedback loop between the top position of the 12th sphere from the Palladorian cell down through the central vertical channel into the base shield under the feet. On either side of the capstone of the personal Christ is the Cosmic Mother Aquamarine Ray on the left and the Cosmic Father Emerald Ray on the right, uniting a trinity of triangles that surrounds the body with a shower of oceanic waves of aquamarine and emerald rays. Many loving waves of celebration for our Kristalla families for achieving their new embodiment configuration during the Palladorian activation for the Diamond Sun body in the second harmonic universe. This light body configuration is ongoing. It allows more of the human earth family to reclaim their personal Christ, to build their eternal diamond sun or body, and to continue to have this choice available to them in the future. For a basic graphic of the Kristalla eternal light body, please refer to our newsletter. 1D, 2D, 4D blockages in the third dimensional timeline. If a being on the earth cannot activate into the fourth dimensional frequencies, which include transmission of the fourth DNA layer, it blocks the ability to replenish the body with the higher frequencies or increase life force energies. If the spiritual biology cannot receive the higher frequencies being circulated, which is being transmitted during planetary ascension, this locks down the third dimensional station of identity into the timeline in which that person was born. If that person remains in the same time vector in which they were born, even though the planet has shifted into higher timelines, that person will not be able to self-regenerate and will require another physical body in which to continue their evolution towards self-mastery and ascension. When a biology is locked down in the third dimensional timelines, the body is incapable of generating the activating sequences that allow for gender merge and changes in particle spin, which are what expand the consciousness bodies. As a result of the limitations of energy loss that is suffered in a biology that is locked down in the third dimensional timeline, some will choose to drop their current body to continue evolving without technological mind control, while others are choosing the transhumanist methods in the artificial intelligence timelines in order to achieve temporary immortality. Currently, the first dimensional and second dimensional fragmentation that produces the pain body and subconscious trauma from the victim-victimizer, sexual misery, and Armageddon software programs are generating an electrical static net field that can be sensed as energetic whiplash or crackling static fields for the sensitive empath. This can keep people stuck in the third dimensional timelines as the negative alien agenda are attacking these areas aggressively with technological mind control. Six-pointed Merkaba star. Because many Earth inhabitants have reached a stage of Merkaba building without understanding that is what is happening to them, the negative alien agenda are using countermeasures to prevent and disturb this natural embodiment process. Transmissions of reversal-coded six-pointed Merkaba stars, distortions of the six-pointed star that represent the unity between the male and female Merkaba spiral, are especially heightened now. This geometry is connected to the law of gender and means unity of the polarity coming into oneness with God. In the earlier stages of building the divine Christic 12th dimensional shield, the Merkaba star or Star of David is the symbol code called upon to support the path of energetic synthesis to bring unity within the light body. The Star of David means unity between male and female. The geometry directs energetic balance between the masculine and feminine energies that exist within every human being, whether in a male or female form. All humans are intrinsically made up of gender principal energies, masculine and feminine, which are designed to come into sacred union in order to communicate with the highest self, the inner Christos Sophia light. For every light worker, it is critical to discern the quality of force that is behind the use of symbols, codes, or geometries, as the intent infused into the symbol is energized with the quality of force that the person is applying into that symbol, as well as for what purpose they use that symbol or code. On the earth, the negative aliens have done everything possible to associate creation symbols that are pure consciousness energy, and distort and debase that energy into reversals in order to destroy creation and destroy life. The imposter spirit has purposely usurped many holy symbols and sacred geometry for the main purpose of creating confusion and fear in the average mind, and to associate negative qualities with creation symbols and holy presence. The main purpose of the Satanist or Luciferian is to destroy the original intent of creation codes, such as sacred geometry, so that the human being will be so filled with fear and confusion around sacred symbolism, they will develop spiritual terror and run away from them so as to not offend God. This is the ruse of the satanic forces, who want to steal creation and life force away from humanity, and thus steal the inherent knowledge of humanity's own consciousness bodies away from them. Hence, the Star of David is abused in black magic by people that have been taught to defile its true meaning in occult rituals by the imposter spirit and negative alien agenda. This is to prevent the true meaning of its use to inspire unity in human beings. Transhumanism for transgenderism. The fundamental basis of the transhumanism concept is that the artificial intelligence downloaded into the scientific human mind, sourcing from the psychopathic negative aliens and satanic forces, serves their quest to survive and achieve immortality by hijacking human consciousness and ultimately possessing the human host body. Transhumanism is a school of thought that seeks to guide us towards a post-human condition, which literally means to guide humanity to exist in a state beyond what is considered a human. Transhumanism enthusiasts are told they can be anything they want to be through means technological, surgical, or medical. Transhumanism and transgenderism are used to further promote the death culture's intended agenda to destroy the heart and soul, the compassionate and empathic divine human being, through the intended annihilation of the true essence of both the masculine and feminine. Essentially, this is ultimately about creating artificially intelligent hybrids or cyborgs to replace the organic spiritual consciousness of humans by those people that remain totally unaware about the reality of the negative alien agenda, soul anatomy, and multidimensional orientation. Transgender people say they were assigned a sex that isn't true to who they are, and this is based on their internal feelings, experiences, and the state of their consciousness body. Of course, this is very real for them. Assigning someone sex is based on their gender biology, which includes chromosomes, anatomy, and hormones. But a person's gender identity, the inner sense of being male, female, or both, doesn't always match their biology. As a result of spiritual light body problems and alien machinery that are impacting the inner gender principle in human beings, the phenomena of gender reversal has been steadily increasing over the last 100 years. Recently, we can see an accelerated artificial intelligence technology being used to create gender identity shifts almost overnight in targeted people, many of whom are public figures. In order to disrupt or destroy the unifying potential of the androgynous light body in the DNA of the human being, the first directive would be to attack the inner and outer gender principle in all ways possible, to fully attack and confuse all matters in regards to the law of gender and law of polarity, which governs natural creation. The negative aliens would need to promote counterfeit creations through inciting confusion in the death process, obliterate the knowledge of the light body and soul, spin confusion in sexual conduct and concepts of marriage and children, instill gender confusion in expected roles, and then start to blend human bodies with animals and machines. Now that everyone is made miserable through the dire problems they have created for us, they can steer our reaction into the solution they have prettily packaged and labeled liberation. Transhumanism and transgenderism is not liberation. It is the deliberate destruction of everything that makes us a real human being. They want to annihilate our potential for multidimensional awareness and crush that which develops and expands human consciousness. For many years now, it is evident that animal DNA has been mixed with human body parts and injected into our children's bloodstream through vaccinations to intentionally dilute and control human genetics to be guided into the guardrails of the transhumanism movement. Injecting animal DNA into human bodies is also the result of many mutations in current human behavior, digressing into a hive mind mentality, which is the type of mental body that the animal kingdom has. The next stage is to merge the human biology with machinery, which has been primed with the spraying of etheric levels of frequency-based alien implants and chemtrails that control thoughts and perceptions of the outer environment. This is a difficult topic, but we all need to take a hard look at it in order to be informed and awake to the current agendas. As we consider more about the issues of transgenderism leading groups towards transhumanism, let's review the spiritual problems that most commonly impact gender on the earth plane. Spiritual problems that impact gender. The negative alien broadcast psychological warfare content for perpetuating sexual misery in humans at varying degrees, including gender polarity reversal, gender splitting, misogyny, sadistic sexual preferences, and sex with children. The worldwide epidemic of sex with children at the causal level is the sexual misery program targeting mind control for pedophilia into the masses. Unhealed sexual trauma in all its forms radically disturbs inner gender balance. Alien abductees that are inducted into hybrid breeding programs or endure genetic experimentation, mismatched body parts, forced intercourse, or harvesting of their sexual fluids can experience severe sexual trauma and gender polarity reversal, resulting in severe confusion about their identity, gender, and sexuality. Some people are forced in the astral to have sex with an alien entity and are emotionally devastated and confused as a result. Targeted individuals can be attacked by anti-herogamic technology to distort gender balance through manipulation of their sexual encounters or relationships. Artificial intelligence inserts of clone bodies holding information of genetic equals are inserted into selected individuals to put targeted people on false timelines or unite them in incompatible marriages engineered on the astral plane, such as described in the alien love bite scenario. Public individuals that bring unapproved topics or esoteric information to the public are targeted intentionally to distort their gender through mutations in order to discredit them or defame their character in any way possible. Many of these people are unaware of their sudden desire to be transgender or have a sex change is caused from targeted AI technology being directed to them. Transhumanism leaders are directly targeted to be involved in spreading and marketing transgenderism and will continue to form alliances in order to promote these both as the coolest, trendy, and most progressive alternative lifestyle for the upwardly mobile. Generally, the soul is the female principle and the monad is the male. When either of these spiritual body parts are fragmented, reversed, or traumatized in another timeline, this can impact the physical body in current time with sensations of gender mix-up or feeling stuck in the wrong gender body. Many times the spiritual body is not connected properly in the physical and needs to be centered and grounded in the core of the physical body to heal gender balance. If a person has had strong emotional connections or trauma in another lifetime as another gender, these memories can transfer into the current incarnation into another gender body from the unresolved conflicts generated from other lifetimes. Spiritual attachments, entities, and oppressions can also impact gender feelings and sexual preferences in an unaware human, in which the spirit attachment uses the host for experiencing certain sexual fetishes or gender preferences. Many religious organizations are filled with alien mind control transmissions that are designed to radically distort the gender principle and have concealed all information that the Christ is a male and female, androgynous God-human. Androgyny has been purposely corrupted and is severely misunderstood. As a result, religious programming has severe consequences in harming intergender balance while promoting unhealthy sexual attitudes and intolerance. Earth has problems with soul fragmentation from instantaneous traumatic deaths caused by assorted weaponry, from nuclear bombs to machine guns. When a person dies suddenly and tragically, and they have not been prepared for the afterlife, they can fragment and quickly attach to another incarnating baby body suddenly without life review or conscious awareness. This has contributed to the spiritual problems that impact gender polarity in the biology at this time on ascending Earth. Psychological and emotional pain in regard to gender confusion, sensations of gender mix-up, feeling ostracized and bullied for feeling different in this way, is a source of real psychological spiritual trauma that may start in early childhood. Unfortunately, our society is not equipped to support children and adults that may suffer greatly with inner gender reversals and related gender confusion as a result of spiritual or sexual trauma. The point of this information is to be aware that there is a specific mind control agenda to spread transhumanism through surgically and medically induced transgenderism in order to reverse the intergender principle which destroys the human light body. We have to know we have a light body and how it works in male and female principle before we can accurately assess ourselves and our environment about who we really are as human beings. How can a human being that has been subjected to psychological warfare and social engineering targeting his or her gender and sexual beliefs throughout their lifetime make a sound and healthy decision that impacts the state of their gender biology and sexual preferences? They simply cannot and are radically impaired. Thus, as human beings, we must make some effort to educate ourselves about the pitfalls of the current events happening in the ascension cycle, like transhumanism's alliance with transgenderism, and be willing to address the layers of spiritual trauma that damages gender. Sadly, religions tend to demonize others suffering with gender trauma, and it's important to recognize the true humanity, the heart and soul that is traumatized by such spiritually abusive behaviors. Compassion and empathy for the suffering of human beings that undergo gender trauma is very much needed, as well as being better informed about such matters. As awake and informed parents, before allowing children to make decisions like taking hormone therapy, plastic surgery, or sex change surgery, openly discussing gender issues and where the permanent effects on the biology can potentially produce even more spiritual harm to the consciousness body is greatly suggested. During the ascension cycle, there is a lot of confusion about gender, as people do not take into consideration that humans inherently have both male and female characteristics and operate in gender principle. The human body is designed as a gender biology that works in alignment to the law of gender and law of polarity. There is a necessity of being willing to do the inner emotional work to support our male and female to be expressed in the most energetically balanced way possible. If a male feels his feminine attributes and feminine right brain characteristics being activated in the ascension cycle, this does not mean he is transgender or he is a biological woman. If a schoolgirl feels more masculine and wants to wear what society labels as male clothes, this does not necessarily mean she is transgender. Adults and children are incredibly confused about the forces they are being exposed to now. The problems with society placing demands on people to act in accordance to rigidly expected gender roles shuts down their ability to explore gender issues openly without backlash. This sets up the problem of persecution and integration into a society that is not tolerant of flexible gender roles, which only increases desperation and suffering for all involved. People that feel desperate and are suffering with gender issues rarely make good decisions. To better understand why transgender people and gender reversals are radically increasing in the death culture requires re-examining the fundamentals of who we are as human beings and what makes us men or women. Also, we must acknowledge that gender principles and the gender concept is currently being greatly expanded upon in human beings during the ascension cycle. As a part of spiritual evolution, we have to inquire deeply inside and take a hard look at ourselves, to give some thought to how the death culture has defined gender and places expectations on males and females in different ways. Before we can truly understand how someone can have a different gender than their assigned gender biology, we have to understand the law of gender and how gender actually translates into our body and consciousness. We must explore how the concept of gender was built into the negative alien agenda's mind control programs, how it was used as a weapon against us, and how the gender split has affected us all. This goes way beyond just accepting others and allowing them to be themselves, and takes us into the deeper examination of who we really are and what we are becoming. When we are informed and aware about what we are facing on the earth, we automatically have the personal power of choice and consent, which allows us to return back to align with the natural laws. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a truth seeker. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar, Christos Sophia, heart path. Please be kind to yourself and each other. With a loving heart, until next month.